Well, hello out there. How's everybody doing? Is everybody favorite conservative in New York, Christopher Wright? And you guys, hey, I'm got a different setting as you guys see, a new background here, some beautiful artwork. And you guys might be wondering, hey, I got a little dog in my lap. Chris, got a Make Art Great Again hat. What's going on, Chris? Well, I'm gonna let you guys know. I got a new podcast I want to start. I met a good friend, fellow patriot here in New York, and he has an amazing story to tell. I'm gonna let him tell it, but I want you guys to know the name of the podcast is going to be Rush Hour, like the movie. And I'm sure you guys can get why we named it Rush Hour, obviously. But it's going to be a great podcast, and I want you guys to introduce his name's Arthur, and then give a little background of who he is.
What's up, guys? So my name is Arthur Kwon Lee. I'm a artist working out in New York City. My journey and how I met Chris, actually, I saw a lot of his troublemaking in the on the Facebook feed, and it seems to be like all his troublemakers seem to attract one another. And my story of being canceled in a similar fashion was in the gallery sphere. So I'm an award-winning fine artist. I won Artist of the Year in 2020. I have a lot of PR that follows my visual art, but it's funny because I was getting all of this momentum and this love, kind of like the new kid on the block kind of thing, until I showed my support for the 45th president. And it's this kind of a microcosm of Kanye or Gina Carano, and this works for all creative people at every level. If you're a conservative, you need to be controlled. And it's because what we're speaking about is spiritual and it's transcendent, and they live in the realm of identity and flesh rather than spirit and values.
Amen.
So I reached out to Chris as an ally, as like the only other patriot that I really was. I mean, there's a lot, turns out, right, with your following.
Yeah.
But in my industry, very seldom, right? But on top of that was the fact that we're in New York City. It's very blue. So when I reached out to Chris, I said, I just want to talk to you as a man, a Christian, and a patriot. But what took it a step further was this guy is ready for the revolution. And that fire under his butt is contagious, and I just appreciate that, brother.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that, brother, man. I really
Yeah.
do, man. Because I'm ready to bring the movement here to New York, man. And it's been in my heart, and my people that have followed me, they know out there, my patriots out there have been following me for a couple of years now. From day one, since I did my walk away, I just really want to get the message out there. Want to get the truth out there. Want to get the fight, show the fight I had for my country, the patriotism I had for the country out there, and showing other people it's okay for them to have that same fight to get their message out there. And when I saw what he was doing here with the art scene, and he was just top of the industry, let's say the golden child of the industry in a way, and just him using his freedom of speech and expressing himself, he gets blackballed from the industry for pretty much just loving the country in a way almost. And the 45th president of the United States. And when I saw what's happening to him, I felt something similar to me when I first, as people say, coming out as a conservative in a way, and to the public at least. And
It's almost like being conservative is being a homosexual, and what I mean.
No.
We talked about this. It's crazy where I work with so many LGBTQ feminists, all these kind of people, and all these different types of Marxists actually using these different Christmas packages, feminism, BLM, whatever you want to call it. And I work with this all the time in the gallery, and I can't help but see that they're saying that they're kept down. They can never voice their opinions whilst being the most shameless. Well, ignorance is arrogance.
Yes.
So there's this boom, all this vehemence, and then I'm like, should I tell them that I don't trust the government? Like, and when I did that, they reacted like I was like assaulting elderly people or something.
No.
Like the reaction was like crazy, because I was just saying, I just don't trust the government. That's what it started as, but the reactions I got were, essentially this has been circulating as an extension from Marxism. So of course they're going to react like that. But at that time when it happened, I was, it was confusing. Yeah.
No, I believe it, man. And the thing is how the left is they're okay. They're all about inclusiveness and diversity as long as you follow the narrative. So as long as it's like a cover package. Like, oh yeah, come on in. Everybody's invited. But once you get inside, they're like, oh, by the way, you better walk this line. And if you don't, then you are the enemy. And that to me is what's insane, because America to me growing up wasn't never like that. Even when I was growing up, you had Democrats, you had Republicans, you had people who disagreed. But the one thing they could do at the end of the day as Americans is come together and meet in the middle and get things done. And now it's like I see with the radical left a lot of times, they are just getting to a point where they are just making it like one way or no way, and that's it. And that's crazy to me because, like you said, I had Rob Smith even admit to me when we, like you brought up earlier, where coming out conservative felt gay. He even told me, Rob Smith, you guys know, a patriot out there, said like it was hard for him to come out conservative than him to come out as gay. Like, and that to me is insane, man.
Milo says the same thing. You know,
Milo.
Well, it's interesting, guys, because in this show you're going to be getting two different vantage points of the patriotic sentiment. This guy's out on the streets, like fighting at a grassroots level.
Walking and talking.
He's walking and talking. I'm inside the studio in the realm of ideas. Maybe it's cerebral, but he's very extroverted. He's public speaking. I just went to one of his. I went to his first initial event at CRA. I was watching him live.
United We Stand event, guys. You guys remember I was talking about it. United We Stand. Great event.
He speaks with sincerity and passion. He's the extroverted conservative. I'm like the introverted conservative as an artist. So
the yin and the yang here.
Yeah, it's true. You're getting this yin and yang holistic approach to what being a patriot can be today. And I was telling Chris before we had this recorded conversation here that I've gotten so many young people reach out to me about how they didn't know a conservative can have my type of temperament, because we have this Poindexter stereotype of maybe a bow tie and drinking like a teacup and wearing box suits, and that's what a Republican is, when that's exactly what the left has done to package that externality.
Thanks.
When it's simply about principles, right? E pluribus unum, out of many one, So my whole process towards becoming somebody on the right side of the aisle was just because I just, the confidence of me just being a creative person and an artist. I wanted to be able to do that fully with the freedom of it, freedom of speech associated with it as well, and spiritually too. So it's funny because I'm actually we're talking about the yin and yang, the polarity. He's probably much more knowledgeable in regards to data, statistics, and all this stuff. And that's a damn good argument in regards to why people should be conservative, in regards to results and evidence. I'm a conservative for romantic reasons, temperamentally, and the spiritual parts of what that implies for our social cohesion culturally. So you get kind of both ends of the conversation. So if we're talking about any issue, it's interesting to hear this fast-talking, Ben Shapiro-esque, grassroots extrovert communicating with, a visual artist who's really interested in, consciousness and this type of subject matter. So I just thought it would be a real interesting juxtaposition of contrast to have this kind of conversation. So this is kind of like a pilot, to see how his audience reacts, because he has a bigger conservative following. Because I've been a painter my whole life for 10 years, right?
Yeah, no, and I hope you guys see where we're going with this, because we got the vibe as soon as I met him, and sat down, we had a conversation. We talked for a couple hours and it felt like 2 seconds. It was a real great conversation. Like I could tell that he loves the country just as much as me. We're both, Christian upbringings. Father's a pastor, like my father was a pastor. So we connected in different, just worldly, spiritual, mental ways, and just the way he presents himself. He does it in his way, and I do it my way. But it's still, we get to the same finish line. You know what I mean?
It's a beautiful thing, and I think I'll introduce myself with that context now that you brought that up a little bit further, because your audience knows you very well now. Because it's going to be on your channel, right? My family came to this country legally, right? And if you look at that generation of Koreans, the vast majority of them, they consciously said in South Korea, before they became American citizens, that we will come to America legally and become patriots. They would vocalize that, right? As they were learning English. So it shows the kind of like the sentiment that I was, my family's perspective on this country. So when we came here, my father's generation is what you call rooftop Koreans, where the LA riots, which is really, the precedent, it's very analogous to the George Floyd riots.
That's true.
That context. My father was realizing like, well, this country, the freedom of this country implies responsibility. That's why this conversation needs to be consistently had, and it will never stop. And people could think lazily and say that's a lot of work, but no, that's the price you pay for having that freedom. Liberation implies credibility, and that credibility is maintain that responsibility. So I was brought up under this circumstance. My father's a military vet, rooftop Korean minister. So it's kind of like hitting these three different these triangulating this. It's like I almost was destined to not to feel distasteful in regards to the general consensus in the gallery woke scene today. It's all social justice.
I have some similar upbringing. Like I said, Dad's an Army Major veteran. Lived in Germany for 5 years as a youth. Got to see the Berlin Wall fall. Saw a lot of the country, traveled all over Europe when I was younger. And he was the highest ranked officer on the military base. I didn't grow up thinking like we were somehow disadvantaged to other races or groups or individuals. Came to the States. I was always physically fit growing up. I would win in a lot of track and field and different activities growing up. So I didn't look at my peers as being better or greater than me, or the country hated me for some reason, or I had no chance of being, having a great opportunity to be successful here. I never felt like that. And that's because a lot of that was to do with my upbringing. So when I'm an adult now and people tell me, oh no, you're disadvantaged, there's people that have advantages over you. And I just had no clue what they're talking about. And they say the country hates me or the country's racist. I definitely don't know anything about that as well.
Yeah, it just seems like all divide and conquer, right? Yeah. And I think, it's not about race. It's just not about race, And the problem with this is that like, when you say it's a white man's fault, what you're doing automatically is you're creating a different class from white and Asian or white to black. The moment if let's say I'm going out, I don't know, let's say I'm going to a deli and some black kid mugs me. If I say it's because he's black, that's not fair for all the rest of the black people.
I agree.
Right? If some Chinese guy steals your car, and if you say it's because he's Chinese, then what are you doing to alter? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
So it's just such a limiting way to think, and I think what caused me to even be more vocal about it, especially now, is this. I was contacted by some of my art dealers about the Stop Asian Hate movement. They wanted to do a group show pushing social justice, and I was obviously contacted because of my slanted eyes, because I wanted to just tell them like, have you Googled me? like just Google me and you might realize like, he may not be in my corner, he may not fit in my echo chamber and plantation narrative. Like, did you Google me? No, you just saw the fact that I got these chinky eyes and you go, you should be a part of the show. So there's a gallery that they're very big on the BLM stuff, and they wanted to do a show with me to say like, yeah, Asian and Stop Asian Hate, Black Lives Matter consolidation kind of thing. And then they said, how do you feel about the Stop Asian Hate movement? We're having dinner here, okay? There's a lot of schmoozing in our scene. So I'm having dinner here, and I said, well, I just think it's very odd. This is what I said verbatim, Chris. I said, I think it's very odd that Black Americans assaulting Asians specifically based on race is white supremacy, right? And she goes, well, what do you think about Black Lives Matter? And I said, well, I think Black Lives Matter is a modern blackface, where a bunch of white liberals are going on the streets saying Black Lives Matter, using the black identity to push your liberal agenda. Like, how do you think that relationship went moving forward?
Yeah, no, that's.
This is why you get doxxed.
No. See, this is real talk. With you guys hearing this, because you guys heard me speak on similar situations from the black man's perspective in this country. And you guys remember the video that I did when I was in Boston, for example. And we went to there was Antifa versus the MAGA. They had MAGA on one side, Antifa on the other, and the street was separated them, and the police had them separated. But I went on the Antifa side, and where it was, they had the 54th Memorial, and I'm sorry, but you guys don't bad with some of the times with the names, but it was pretty much the movie Glory, the battalion that fought in the movie Glory, and all black battalion, the first black battalion, in that war, and they just vandalized the whole statue and everything that was involved. And what I want people to see when I walked their Antifa side, the people that vandalized it, I just would walk through quietly because of course they would just accept me because they see me as a black man. Oh, of course he's with us. So they let me walk right in the middle, and I walked through. I recorded them, everybody in that crowd, as many people as I can. The reason why, and I remember you guys said when I got to the end of the crowd, I said, "Did you guys notice who mostly was in that crowd?" And I said, white people. Not bring up race, to be race, nothing like that. But you don't know those are the same.
It shows the hypocrisy. It shows the hypocrisy.
It shows the hypocrisy.
Yeah, it just shows the hypocrisy because, I mean, again, this is exactly what they want, though. They just want us to go into civil war amongst each other, but the only potentiality of the civil war that's going to happen is going to be between the left and the right, not the races. It's going to be a matter of people of principles fighting once again, because we are in a polarized time. Everything is antithetical right now, but that isn't because that's not because conservatives are willing to have open conversation. That's not why. The antithetical nature is because the supply of bigotry doesn't meet the demand. So they're looking for villains everywhere, castigating everyone.
I hope you guys are hearing this because I don't mean to cut you off, man. That was a great point, man. Because when I yelled at Black Lives, when I go to these Times Square events, you guys see me these events, and Black Lives Matter there, and we're going back and forth. It gets heated. Yeah, and when they give me that moment to speak to them, I say to them, I'm like, you guys, know the history of the Democratic Party. This is the party of lynching, segregation, hate, the KKK, Margaret Sanger, Planned Parenthood, to murder black babies. And I guys speak fast, so I'm getting all this information fast. And I notice they're listening. And I say, what you guys want, it's like you guys want the hatred. You guys want the racism, like knocking on your front door. You're looking for it. And it's like, that is how, like you said, you're looking for the bigotry, and it's not there. Yeah. And so and I'm like, and I told them one time, I said, you guys want the angry white man in the mask? Who's right next to you? He's Antifa. Like, those are the only time I see angry white men in masks and, in groups.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. And you know what? I have to concur. I do think they're looking for enemies because there's a saying that America is such a good country that we create problems. That we fathom problems into existence. And I think all these overprivileged lefties on the streets, these radicals, dissenting about everything that they can,
every week
with no sense of gratitude. By the way, I think what's going on with these people is they don't have any real problems. They don't have to have a job. They can stay at home with mama the rest of their lives. Yep. So they're
living in a nice rooftop apartment in Manhattan. They've been born and raised in, living a nice life, but they're oppressed when they hit NYU, early college.
And I'll tell you something interesting. I was reading an article by The Telegraph, and in the United Kingdom, and they're okay. They're not as biased as a lot of the wokies on our side of the fence.
Thank goodness.
But yeah, they did a study saying that men with natural, more upper body strength in their arms and their chest, on average, were conservative, and that made me think about it. So I looked into that. I looked into that further, and I realized that if these skinny beta males on the streets, they have to assault you, 20-to-1 ratio, jumping you and doing all this, foolishness. If they got out of their mama's house, if they got into the best shape of their lives, if they educated themselves towards an interest, and then they made that interest into a skill, and then they tried to monetize that, they'd be too busy, and then they'd realize de facto, just by being on this natural progression of improving oneself, you'll be a conservative in today's climate automatically just by doing that. That's what I kind of realized. Like, I look at all of these people on the streets as it's circumstantial. Jonathan Haidt talks about this. A lot of this is circumstantial. A lot of people's political predilections are circumstantial. And I see so many people on the streets, especially on the left, but also on the right sometimes. But I agree with what they're saying, but I can still see the diagnosis of what I'm about to say, which is that, like, a lot of these people are young people. They don't have their shit together, so they're out there playing Dungeons and Dragons. Because it's easier.
Wow. And think about that.
It's easier to be cerebral because by being intellectual, you don't actually have to face a direct experience and realize where you are and improve as a man and face and realize that you are a person of sin and grow. You don't have to realize that because you can have that distance.
Wow.
And so a lot of these people...
Safe space distance. You're in that safe space.
Aristotle once said that if you're under 30 and your life is politics, you're a loser. Right? And these are the ones on the streets. And not only that, they're also backed by this privilege of you know, they're all sons and daughters of like really wealthy people often.
Yeah,
you know, on average. Or they're really lost people who are just toxic. You know, and it is, you know, Antifa actually selects those people the way Joker selected mentally sick people, right?
That's true. That's true.
So there's other psychological things going on there, but
there's definitely a certain look to those kind of people, man. I've been to both sides of the events. Of course, you guys know I've been to MAGA events, showed you guys MAGA events, and you guys know I've dealt with leftist events, not in terms of my own channel, but I've helped out a lad, barely influenced, shot that lad out there. He took me to, you know, he asked me to help him out especially during the quarantine last summer here in New York with just recording his, you know, some of his interviews and everything like that. And because all his, you know, probably leftist leaning cameramen were too afraid to come outside at the time because they had the mask gloves on and everything. But I came out like, I don't care, man, I got you. So I came out, gave him a hand, and, you know, he took me to these leftist events, man, and I went to some Black Lives Matter and Antifa events. And it was just, I never picked up you guys all the time. I've never been to a cult kind of situation or event in my entire life. But if I took a guess of what it looked like or what it sounds like, it would be an Antifa gathering or Black Lives Matter event. They were like zombies, like just one speaker sounding monotone on the mic, talking like this, and then the crowd repeating in the same monotone voice. And there was no emotion, everybody was wearing black, there was no color, there was just no feeling. There was nothing, no passion, nothing there.
And I would bet those same people that are like zombified, who feel like they're part of this woke revolution, they go back home and they watch pornography and play video games all the time. No, I would bet you.
Yeah, they probably live on Twitch. I would probably agree with you on that.
Yeah. I see. So these people, they don't have to. I'm telling you, man. Like most people, you know, there's a study saying that most people become conservative after 30 because it takes a while for life to beat the stupid out of you.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
And I think that's a big part of it. But unfortunately today, with social media, having an echo chamber of the internet, and how bad things are right now, people can extend their adolescence, especially in New York City.
Oh yeah.
I often meet men in New York City who are in their late 40s, sometimes they're in their early 50s, and they're still trying to hook up with girls who are in their early 20s.
Yeah,
and I'm telling you, I guarantee you they voted for Joe Biden too. You see what I'm saying? I'm saying that the psychological and the political connections, the explanatory properties they explain so much, and I'm just starting to realize that you know, like guys, like I am not, like I was never the most political person, but now I am at this stage because I tell people that I was pushed to the right, right? Like I'm a paint, no, like really, like I'm an artist, like let me tell you, like I would have never thought the left cared about what a painter. I'm not like my form of art. I'm not a comedian. I'm not on stage. I'm not a rapper. I don't have like, it's not my face. I'm making this here. I would have never thought the left cared even at that point. But again, we talked about the supply bigotry not meeting the demand. What I've come to see is that I was making a biblical series once, right? I was making a biblical series with my paintings, and then the gallery director's like, well, how does this address LGBTQ issues? It's like, well, that wasn't my goal. Like the point of art is to not be touched by an ideology. You go where the art goes if you're really a creative person. But after dealing with this, and I gotta say, I understand that people can address things by saying, look, you know, but the right side has their own identity. Okay, but I've only ever dealt with this as a creative person from the left. I've only ever dealt with this with this constant numbing of the left ruining what I love, which is the creative side. So I tell people I was pushed to the right because my father told me the same thing. He said when he came to this country, he was like a right of center kind of guy, and without changing a single view in 30 years, because he's a public figure too, people are calling him like a super Republican person because the climate has changed. So nowadays, so many guys who just want to, be more traditionally oriented, they want to find one woman that they can build a family with. They're realizing, you know what, the model of the left hates me. I can't even do something as basic as ABC and find a good woman to try to make kids with, because you're ruining the woman, you're ruining family values, and you're ruining my image of who I am without them even knowing who I am.
And taking out of the picture as well, what they're doing.
Well, I mean, in the real, this might be another episode, but the fact that God was removed, that's why this is all here.
Of course, it starts with that. It starts with Almighty when it comes to that.
Oh yeah.
And it's funny that you said it, because what's the guy quote I always say, guys, when it comes to the left? When I went to the Republican, vote Trump for the first time. That was the first time I voted Republican in my entire life, was for Trump in 2016, and I didn't vote for him. So I'm a lifelong Republican now. I voted for him like, okay, Trump, I'll give you an opportunity, but if you do bad, I'll go back over here again. But I didn't leave the left; they left me.
That's it.
That's what happened.
That is it.
I went with Trump for that 4 years, and then when I look back, the left was doing something. I'm like, what is that? What's it, pedophilia? LGBTQYRC, little grown men in the girls' room, and I don't know what that is.
It's deafening, and I think if you are a person who cares about social cohesion, and who even has desire, maybe you don't want a family, maybe you have your own lifestyle, but you understand family values because you're brought up appreciating it, right? You're gonna be on the right. It's just that, because I'm speaking as a person who works in a very far left creative industry, and I'm more spiritually oriented. Actually, I'm a spiritual person, not the most political, but I've become a political person because today, if you want to protect yourself and say, I want to be a spiritual person, and I'm just speaking for myself right now, there's only one side you can be on so you can maintain that cushion to have that sanity, that frame. And that is a right. And that's what I'm realizing.
Facts.
Yeah, it's just, it's the climate.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It really is. And that's what that's why it's so important, is what we're doing right now, is getting this conservative message out from a different angle. Because, we were the traditional rhino Republican, whatever type, that kind of type of Republican, we will look a certain way, obviously. But we coming from a point of view where, it's not, when you turn on, you see two conservatives, you're not picturing us speaking. But it is. And so when people see us, they're more willing to listen to what they say. Especially with that thing going on with the, Asian community, especially in New York, with everything happening. And not the fake news Asian hate, but the real videos of Asians getting attacked and stuff like that. A lot of it's Black Lives Matter, but they won't talk about that. But, and also as a Black conservative in New York, stuff that I'm dealing with as well. But that's why it's so important for us to get it out there, because this is what a lot of Americans are dealing with every single day. And
it's funny because I think we just said it earlier in that it's not about race.
No, definitely.
Having said that, to me, what's going to happen with the trajectory of America, it's all about the Black community, actually. I'm just going to be straight up. Because to me, the narrative of what's going to happen to the Democrat Party is completely on whether or not the Black community recognizes that the only thing they have, the only linchpin, it's a house of cards once you pull this linchpin out. The only linchpin they have is an unearned sense of moral superiority.
Yes. Mental slavery is what they're doing with the Black community right now. It's no longer the physical plantation slavery; it's the mental plantation they're stuck.
And it's like once the Black community sees how they've been just lied to.
Mm-hmm. Starting from the 1930s on, then boom. And
once they see that, the Republican Party will be unstoppable.
I absolutely agree with you there, man. I absolutely agree. That's why when Kanye did what he did, that was like, I remember Kanye did what he did. I remember guys with the MAGA hat on for the walk and talk through Brooklyn. So because I knew the significance of that. Because, he had even supporters before Kanye who were technically Black supporters, Black men like Jim Brown, Herschel Walker, Floyd Mayweather Jr., Mike Tyson, because they all were in sports business and Trump was in that business, and they all got taken care of by Trump business-wise. So they had nothing negative to say about him. And I was glad that they came out and respected them for coming out and sticking to their guns. supporting Trump before he became
Yeah, the
president.
biggest badasses always support Trump.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, definitely. When I saw Tyson coming out, I was like, okay, who's going to talk trash about Tyson? I want to see that. Who's going to be that guy to try to what leftist?
You know, it's funny because like Mike Tyson is I understand he has such a crazy checkered past and some detrimental things, but in my own personal life, when I was as a young man, he was a hero for me just because the way he performed, and he was just so out of this world. Like Mike Tyson was like a personal hero of mine. Obviously not for like familial reasons, but in regards to like his artistry, just coming out and just fully committing himself to his art,
yes,
that inspired me in my own creative passion.
Right.
The full commitment.
Man,
So when I saw Mike Tyson come out, and I was like, oh shit, Mike Tyson's gonna start talking about political shit. Maybe they got to him, maybe they bought him, and he goes, nah, Trump is cool. I'm like, dang, Mike Tyson is the man. He really is. He really is. He really is a man. He really is a man.
No, he is. He is.
And by the way, nowadays with the hot box with Mike Tyson, by the way, Jesse Lee Peterson was just on the show.
Oh, Jesse Lee.
Jesse.
Jesse Lee. So
Yeah,
Jesse.
I love you, Jesse.
Good man, Jesse.
Yeah, he is. Mike Tyson's getting super deep lately too now. Like now he's fighting in the realm of ideas too. So.
Oh man, I've watched Hot Box with Mike Tyson a lot now, man. I mean, like I said, I grew up on Tyson, man. Like I said, it's kind of interesting. You have somebody you grew up on one way when you're a child. He's somebody a superhero in that way, and now you're an adult. You see him still there in a different kind of way, man.
Yeah.
True evolution, man. And I respect him for that because he, you know, and he'd be the first one to tell you he had to go through a lot of personal stuff, a lot of, you know, situations that he's not even proud of, some of the things that he participated in, but he got through it. He admitted that he, was wrong with certain things. He became a better man from it, and now he's at a point now where he's helping out others, man, and he's doing great things. And that's just an example of being a good man, and also being a strong man, and also just what this country can do for you, man. America is one of those countries where you're allowed to do that whole process. In other countries, you get a quarter way where Mike got, and that'll be the end, and that's it.
You know what? Speaking of those trials, he's been through so much, and I think. A mind like him, like people don't realize Mike Tyson's a very deep guy.
Oh yeah.
And with the fact that he has that depth, with everything he's been through, I think he's realized, especially with his he's been doing some deep soul searching stuff in regards to entheogens and things like that too. But I think he was realizing that, happiness is not a material thing actually. It's about the values you uphold and how you can influence your children or family, loved ones in that same regard. And to me, it just makes sense with how he is today and the sentiment that I just shared, that he's not on the left. Because a Marxist, they believe paradise on earth. They don't. They don't.
The liberal utopia. I like the term I've used a lot.
Yeah. They don't believe. I mean, a conservative understands that, like, we're all here. We're gonna try to do our best, and we have to be nice to each other. The left, that's not good enough. But again, the problem with welfare is that you eventually run out of someone else's money, right? Margaret Sanger said that. So, but to me, it makes sense when a person has gone through enough struggle. This is my roundabout way of saying this. When a person has pushed up against a challenge or resistance and has had to develop resilience, they're also going to be more conservative. So what I'm saying is that I think being a conservative requires psychological ability to endure.
Yes.
I think that's what it is.
Yes.
And that's why religious people are often conservative. Because to be religious, you need to be willing to go deep enough.
Yes.
Yes. And that takes gonads.
It does. It does.
Yeah. Because you need to be willing to look at the mirror.
And it's funny you say this. Look at the modern generation. I tell you all the time, like the people coming up these, a lot of these far leftists, radical leftists, and people, all that. I'm a millennial, older millennial, so I'm like, I've got to call like millennial X or whatever, because I'm right next to Gen X, my age. I'm not technically Gen X, but I'm right after, so I'm an older millennial. When I say the younger millennials, those were the kids I remember growing up, where I'd go see them in school or elementary school. I'll see them. My older sister was a babysitter, so she would babysit kids that age, and I would think they're the biggest brats, man. And I'm like, these kids, and and I would watch them, and I'll see, not all of them, of course, I'm not gonna say everybody, but a lot of them were. And I would say, okay, well, how do parents go discipline them? Because I know with me, my dad, got the belt out, game over, and they will come, when the parents came home, it was like, oh no, it's okay, go in the corner and think about what you did. And I was like, what? That's not gonna do anything. And as time went by, I see all these Antifa, these leftists, and they're so, they're so privileged in what they think they deserve and everything like that. It confuses me, but then it made me think, I'm like, okay, I'm 37 years old now. Those kids, when they were little, are now adults now. Now look at how they're acting. They're a generation of everybody's a winner, we're all winners, nobody. And now you got adults.
And you know what? It's important to articulate the diagnosis of that. Like, the reason why everyone's a winner, man, okay, I'm gonna first say an anecdotal story, and then we'll go into the data. I remember, this is a specific incident where the memory is very strong because of very intense moment. My brother and I got into a big physical fight. Like one of our biggest physical fights ever.
Oh man, brothers. I have an older sister. I have friends with brothers though. I saw how they were, man. It was no joke.
Oh, it was a rough one. And my mother, she gets home and she sees that like we banged each other up. She goes, "What happened?" I'm like, "Oh, we fought, obviously." She's like, "You're both my children. I love you both equally, and you're both wrong." Flat. We know what the real deal of what really matters is going to be when dad gets home. So when father gets home, he goes, "Okay, who started the fight?" My brother says, "I did." He said, "You're wrong." So one side, it's all equal outcome. Other sides, equal opportunity. And I hate to say this, but women tend to vote their biological imperative.
That's what we got.
No, I mean, it's just true. I mean, every pupil, I mean, my buddy works at the labor of BLS, so he gives me a lot of just straight data before it goes to any media.
Yeah, that's the data right there. It's pure data.
Women are the ones voting in all this higher welfare, increase of migration. I mean, women are voting a lot of the stuff in. And it's not actually, and I'm not blaming women. I'm not saying toxic femininity because I'm not a MGTOW pickup artist. I'm not into any of that stuff. But my point is, masculinity is out the window, and that's why we're suffering. Because to tie all this together, the death. When Nietzsche said God is dead, he was not saying that in a positive way. He was saying, "Oh no, the people no longer believe in God." So what that's going to be replaced with, because we always need something we can have a hierarchy for, is the state. So the death of God means the death of masculinity, means the death of fathers at home, means the proliferation of those ideals through the media and the state. And the welfare state is essentially the single motherhood state anyways.
And there you go. And how many times have I told you guys?
So everyone's a winner without any real winners, because women are the ones, they're the ones pushing that. You know what I mean? Like, look at all the government schooling is all.
No. Like I said, I was going to say, like I tell you guys all the time, when it comes to the black community, the biggest issue I say would be bigger than black and black crime is fathers not being in the household. That is a big. And where have the fathers gone? If you look since the 1930s, when the Democrat policy starts coming to the black community, as time went by, slowly but surely, you've seen the father getting pushed out the door and the government coming in the door, replacing. So that's what you see in the black community now. I want to invite people to do the research cross-continentally. You go to Korea, and all the people causing the problems are raised by single mothers. So nobody wants to talk about this, but the welfare state everywhere is the same. It's basically to, make it the government the daddy. Everywhere you go. Korea is the same situation. Most of my family is in Korea, so I visit there every summer almost. And when I go there, I see that all this crime, all the problems, all the shenanigans are being caused by boys raised by single mothers. And all the women participating in hookup culture, deteriorating their value at every turn, raised by single mothers also. So fathers have to come back into the picture. I mean, that's all it really is, because once fathers represent the strength at home. So the reason why I say the death of God is the death of masculinity and is also the death of fatherhood is because literally those are all tied together. And the Bible talks about how the father is supposed to look up to Christ and as an example and to be like him at home. That's what it is. That's the whole point of a father, to watch over the familial cohesion, which represents greater social cohesion. But if that's not there, then doing the right thing is no longer about doing what's right because it's the right thing to do. It becomes, I'm doing this, I'm not going to do the wrong thing, not because it's wrong,
because I don't want to get caught. It goes into like a more feminine sense of morality.
Oh, wow. Very good point. Very good point with that.
And I know this makes people uncomfortable, but it has to be said too.
Yeah,
it has to be said.
Because somebody has to say it. I mean, nobody says it. That's the problem. That's why we're at where we're at now.
Yeah.
Nobody's touching.
Just remember, the Marxists, they knew to empower, fake power, by the way. They knew to empower these young ladies to feel like men are the bad. Like, you know, they knew they're called useful idiots.
Yes.
In Russia, they're called useful idiots.
Yes, because once communists come and take over, they're going to be the first ones eliminated because they don't need them anymore. You've done your job, you useful idiots. Now we don't need you. We need masculinity to conquer now.
Yeah, so. Exactly. And I guess, I guess it's just a general way of saying to the conservatives listening, we need to kind of develop a little bit of a mean streak because the strategy that we've been having, hoping the understanding has a modicum of sanity and they'll understand where we're coming from.
Trump said it. We're playing too nice.
Yeah, I mean that's been our strategy. We're just hoping that the civility that we give will be approached with, "Oh, thank you for being nice." They don't do that.
No,
they don't do that.
They don't play it fair on their side. We play fair on our side.
Reliability by nature is scarce, so you need to preserve that for those who you have vetted that deserve it. Your family, your specific group of friends, and the people who are in your in-group. They deserve it because they care about your well-being. But the left, who not only are complete strangers, who they want your family to be broken apart so that they can push their Marxist agenda at the end. I mean, it's like you don't need to waste your time on that. You know, pick your battles and win. You know, I think that's about it.
There you go.
Yeah.
I couldn't have said it better. That's a great way to close, man. It's like I said, it's time for us to go on offense, man. We've been on defense, playing, you know, the GOP establishment, you know, hands up approach, and it's no longer it's time to change that. And this is what a part of this is, what this podcast is about as well, is we're going to be helping bring that change.
Yeah,
and we're going to do it right.
Yeah. Let us know what y'all think. If you guys like the idea of Russia with the conservative Chris Tucker and the creative Jackie Chan here. Okay,
there you go.
Boom.
Then we do our own stunts.
There we go.
Peace out.